Okay, so here we're going to be making a turquoise ring, and I'm going to do a little twist wire around it and some little beads on it, so a little bit of decorative stuff also. The shape of this stone is a little bit different. It's not just round or anything like that. It's kind of a bean shape. So here I'm just wrapping that bezel wire around and marking it and then cutting it so we know where to cut it. And you can do that with anything sharp. It doesn't have to be a pen or anything. Some people do use Sharpies though. I just use whatever's on my desk that's sharp. And then I am using some pliers to just make that little part right there match up so I can solder it. Sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. It can be a little finicky. And down, just getting it on the soldering block and then putting some borax and a borax water mixture. It's called flux. I'm just using my little torch and heating it up. And then putting a little solder on it. Making sure it went all the way down and not just part of the way. And now I'm quenching it so I can play with it and not burn myself. Burning yourself is not fun at all. I've done it way more times in my life than I'd like to. If you don't like burning yourself, don't silversmith because it will happen. Probably like 5 times a day. Drying it off so it's not all wet. And then I'm setting it back in that stone to make sure that it fits that stone still. And then just using that little bezel rocker to make sure that it fits in there nicely. And I'm not pushing that bezel in. I know it kind of looks like I am, but I'm not. I am focusing that pressure at the bottom, and then in here I am focusing that pressure at more towards the top. Sometimes I feel like it makes it fit a little bit better if you're able to turn the stone upside down and do that. And then just getting that stone back out of there. You don't want to push that bezel in because if you do, obviously you will not be able to get that stone in later, and we want to be able to get that stone in later. So if you can kind of tell when it's sitting there, it's more up and down, it's not pushed in. And right now I'm just trying to find some silver to use. I decided to use a little bit thicker one. This one's a 26 gauge. The other one I was planning on using was a little thinner than I wanted, so we want to have nice quality, have it nice and thick. This is a pretty small ring, so the other one would have been okay, but I like it thicker. Just using something sharp to draw it out once again, and then cutting it out. And I'm making sure to leave enough space around that setting so that way I can do the design work. You don't need a whole lot of space, but I don't like to leave too much space either because that's more wire and more silver you have to buy. More sheet silver. Here I'm just putting the borax and the water, the flux on it. And here we are just heating it up. I do like to sand that little back piece, the flat piece, down a little bit. It helps to for the solder to flow if it's clean. Solder doesn't like to flow where it is dirty, so if it's clean, it's gonna flow easier. And especially when you're doing decorative work. I didn't do it to this piece, and I should have, but I didn't have any problems with it, thankfully. Any major problems, at least. Probably would have been a little bit easier if I did. It wasn't a super dirty piece either. That was pretty clean for the most part. But even like the oils from your hands can make it so it doesn't want to flow. And there I'm just quenching it. And I'll dry it off. Now I'm trying to decide what I wanted to do with it, because at this point I didn't really know. I was like, do I want to do this kind of wire, that kind of wire? I don't know. So I was just kind of figuring out, do I want it to be a ring? Do I want it to be a pendant? I probably should have done a pendant because I'm really low on pendants right now. Necklaces and things like that I desperately need, but I kind of need everything right now. So my cases are kind of low. So still thinking about it. What am I going to do? I found some twist wire and I'm like, hey, let's do this. Let's see what this looks like. I'm glad I did too. I think that one turned out really, really pretty. Twisting it around. And I like to add beads to my designs, because with especially twist wire, if you just have the two twist wires meet up, a lot of times you can see it where it met up, and I just don't like that look. So I like having a little bit of design rather than just that twist wire all the way around, or bead wire all the way around. This I feel like makes it look a little bit nicer, a little bit less obvious that it meets, more obvious that it meets up, but a nicer meet up where it does meet up. It slipped when I was trying to push it, which happens often. That, or I'll be trying to clean something and it'll just go flying off in the room somewhere. That's usually fun. Here, I'm just putting it back on. Sometimes if you squeeze it a little bit, it can get it so it goes in a little bit nicer. Another thing you can do is quench it, where you just, quenching it is where you would heat it up and cool it back down. I'm sorry, annealing it. My mind's not working. Annealing it, where you would heat that wire up and then quench it. There we go. My brain's working again. And that would make it so it's more malleable. I'm just putting some flux on it. And turning it around so I can actually see what I'm doing. I usually start towards either one side of it, or sometimes I'll start at the back of it and work my way to the front. I think on this one I started on the corner because I kind of knew where I wanted it to meet up. So I'm just heating it up. When you heat it up like this, you can't tell as much in the video, but in person it turns white and bubbles, and then it turns like this blackish color, and then it starts turning this reddish color. And when it does that, that's when you want to hit it with the solder. You want it so that when it doesn't get too hot, obviously, that it melts, but then it also doesn't ball up. It actually flows when you tap it. If it doesn't flow right away and it kind of balls up, that's okay. This twist wire broke right here. I'm so sad about it. Makes it a little bit more difficult to work with too, so made it a little bit harder, but it happens. Not a whole lot you can do with it, but that's why I kind of finick with this little piece right here a little bit more, because I am trying to get it to match up with the two wires, so it's not as obvious. And it actually turned out pretty good. I don't think it's super, super obvious on the ring, especially when you're looking straight at it, the design where it broke. You can't tell really by looking at it. It's kind of one of those things where if you know it happened, then you know. It'd be like that kind of mistake. Kind of sucks when you're working on something and it's a major mistake and it's obvious. Decided I needed some more solder, so grab some more of that. piece there. It's like, come on, just go. Line up. My tweezers were also starting to get really hot right here. I probably should have switched them out. I might have even switched them out. I don't really remember. I think I just kind of tried to deal with it. All right, and then we're going to quench it. Putting flux on it. And then I'm trying to find some little balls to fit in there. This process can take a little bit of time, so sorry about that. I don't know if you guys want me to like do everything as I do it, or if you guys want me to speed things up. So feedback on that would be great. I don't know if you guys want to see the slowed down version. I would assume so, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, let me know. I don't mind like doing 2 versions or something where one's sped up too. Or doing videos different ways, seeing what you guys like best. This process can take a while. All I'm doing is searching through and trying to find balls that match up, balls that are similar in size. And then that middle ball, I needed that one, or wanted that one to be a little on the bigger side. And they love to fall off. One thing that you can do too is put flux on it, and it'll help them stay on. I think I did it, but I don't know if I did enough of it, maybe. I feel like I didn't do it yet on there, and I don't know why I didn't do it. Right there, I did dip that ball in the flux. I'm going to put it on there so that helps it stick. I was having a hard time with that one little ball, trying to get the right size. It's always so hard. Because you don't want something too big, you don't want something too small, and then they fall off. It's fun. You have to have a lot of patience to do this, I think. It's fun to have the outcome, but there's a lot of hiccups along the way sometimes. But it is fun. There, now I finally decided to flux it. Crazy. Should have done that way sooner. I did with that little ball, though. I did dip that, so that probably helped the rest stick on better. And then it turns white, and then it will turn the black, and then it'll turn that liquidy, and then that's when we want to solder it. I know it's a little bit harder to see on here, or at least on my screen that I'm watching right now, because it's really small. And then what you can do is take that wire and cut it and put just a little piece next to that, or you can tap it like I did, or you can use the sheet of silver and cut it and do that process, which is really easy too also. Alright, and I'm just soldering those now, getting them into place. I think the balls kind of were awkward looking, so I was kind of readjusting them. Oh, and then, was it this one? I think one of the balls was actually soldered, and I had to, I don't remember, maybe it must not have been that one. Okay, I thought one of the balls was solder, and I thought it flew, like, started to flow, but I think that was the last ring I made, maybe. I don't know. I've been making a lot of jewelry lately. It all kind of goes together after a while. made 2 rings right before I filmed this, and then I made 3 more rings, and then I made this ring. But also filming, doing them, and recording and all that too. So, fun process. I'm just cutting that extra silver from that. And then taking a sander and just sanding the rough edges off of that. I was trying to find the right bits that I wanted to use too. The right Dremel and the right bit. I have 2 different Dremels, and they have to have the right size in order to fit in the little shank thing. Just taking off those rough edges, making sure they aren't sharp. Cleaning it up. I did sand the top of it because the where it met up wasn't completely aligned, which I should have used a sanding drum thing that was less of a grit, because that one was like 80 grit. It was really like a harsh grit. So then I had to go back in with something, a different type of one of these kinds, and sand back over it to get the marks from the 80 grit off of it. So sometimes it's easier to use a finer one and not have to do this. I couldn't find one though. So just going back in and taking out those little scratches from that last one. It kind of smooths the edges down a little bit too though, so that can be kind of nice. And then sanding where it meets up so it's not as obvious. So just going around making sure it's not as obvious. When I did solder it, that kind of melted a little bit, but once I set it, I didn't sand too much into it because I knew that like, once I set it, you wouldn't be able to tell, but you can kind of tell in the video. So I sanded on it a little bit, but I didn't sand on it too much because I knew once it set, it wouldn't be as obvious. Big deal or anything like that. And then here I'm just cleaning off that back of the ring so we can make it into a ring, and the solder will flow. We definitely want that solder to flow. If it doesn't flow, then that's not good. And then here I'm making the band for the ring, just grabbing a mandrel, wrapping that wire around. I'm not trying to get a specific size because I just need everything all the time, it feels like. Common sizes that I do kind of go for are like between like 5 and 7, because I can kind of make things bigger. It's hard to make things smaller. I find a lot of people are a size 5, and if you're kind of in between like a bigger hand or like if you're not really sure, I feel like a 7's really a good size to get. And if people are like a 9 or anything like that, you can usually make it, put it on a mandrel and hit it with a rubber mallet to make it bigger. So yeah, it's easier to make rings bigger than it is to make them smaller. To make them smaller, I can do a video on that sometime. I just hate doing it, but I can. What you would do is you would take a ring and you would cut the band, and if it has a stone in it, you have to put it in water and do it that way so it doesn't break the stone, and it takes forever to solder back together. Sometimes you're better off just taking out the stone. Here I'm just in this video I'm fluxing that there and getting it ready to solder. Yeah, so if you don't have the stone in it, you can just basically solder it, like kind of how I'm doing actually right now. Just at wherever it is that you cut, which I'd obviously want to cut away from, like in the middle at the back of the ring. So, and I can do a video on that if you guys want to see how I do that. I could do one with the stone in it and then without. It's a lot easier without. But yeah, it's better to do rings that are smaller and then make them bigger. Plus I have bigger hands, so I'm more of like a 7 to 9. So I try to make things not fit me, so I don't want to keep it. I am cutting out parts where I'm looking for tools and stuff just to save time. So it did take me longer to make it than what the timestamp showing on here. It took me 37 minutes to make it, and that's with like stopping because I'm filming and stuff like that. So trying to do things before filming. So it doesn't take a whole lot of time to make stuff like this. Obviously I've been doing it for about 5-6 years now, so I can do it a little bit quicker than probably people that are just learning. So I would say if you're just learning, I'd say maybe an hour and a half or so for something like this. Just depends. I'm kind of working slow here. And there's things I could have definitely done differently to make it not take as much time. Like, for instance, using that sanding bit on the top and then having to re-sand it. Little things like that. But I'm not perfect, so that's life. Here I'm just cleaning up that ring before I set the stone. This is actually the same kind of sanding, but as the other one is just really, really worn down. Which I actually like it when they get really worn down like that, and like this one's I think an 80 grit, because then I can go in and do what I'm doing now on that little middle spot. And it works really well for that. And I'm just switching out between the different sanding discs. This one I don't think it was kind of not strong enough, so I wanted to bounce back to one that was stronger. I don't really have them all memorized, to be honest. You'd think I would after. I know like this one's stronger than the last one, that kind of thing, but I don't know if this one's like I think this one's probably like a 400 grit or something like that. But I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I think the other one was like 700 or 800 grit. I don't know. They'll be labeled though. If you get the starter kit, they'll be labeled and know what they are. I'm just cleaning that up. I don't always go through all of them. Like I kind of did a little bit in this. But it does make it a lot shinier, a lot prettier when you're done. So I do try to, go through it quite often. Go through each one of those little sanding discs. Makes it nice and clean and pretty. And you actually don't really have to use a polishing compound, but if you do go through each and every one of the steps of those polishing wheels, but with a little bit of polishing compound, it really makes it pretty. Really shines it up a lot. Big difference. And I am adding liver of sulfur to it. Usually I have it in like a little dish and some water, and I just will dip the ring in. I was kind of done for the night though, and I didn't really need a whole lot of it on my last one, so I didn't really do that today. I just put it directly on it like you saw in the video. I did dip that paintbrush in basically it came out of like a water solution, so it was a little bit more liquidy, which I like personally, because then it's less liver sulfur I have to use and it goes a lot farther. And so what I'm dipping it there in is actually water with baking soda. And I don't think I had enough baking soda in it, to be honest. But yeah, it's just water with baking soda, and the baking soda neutralizes the liver of sulfur. And it's looking so good. And in my head, I was thinking, this is so not pretty. I was kind of thinking I wasn't even going to post this video, to be honest. And then once it gets done, I was like, dang, this should turn out really good. Yeah, but I definitely had like a moment. I feel like jewelry always goes through a little bit of an ugly stage, and I'm like, do I want to post this? Do I just want to like not? Don't want to throw it away. But this one actually turned out really pretty when I was done. I believe the stone is Kingman turquoise too. Yeah, it's definitely Kingman turquoise. It's a really pretty stone. And this setting, I feel like, really did complement it. Just making sure to get all the way around the ring. That way it can be nice and shiny when it's done. Okay, so we're getting to the point where we're just gonna set that stone. Just trying to get that adjusted so it's not super awkward for me. Where my camera sits, it's a little awkward because it's like kind of right where my face needs to be, but that happens. So I put glue in there, and then it had some water in there, and glue and water like makes the glue harden right away, which I didn't know until I started silversmithing, so that was new for me. But so I like to put the Gorilla Glue down first, and then I like to put some shavings in it. The Gorilla Glue is to stop any wiggle, and the shavings are so if there's any solder down at the bottom of the base, when you go to put that stone in, it doesn't crack the stone. And then it also helps lift the stone, and it also helps to add a little bit of cushion in case like you hit it against anything. It can also help to lift the stone a little bit too. Yeah, so I did that, and then I realized I should have pushed that bezel out a little bit more. So I'm doing that here. Should have done that first, but you know, who wants to do things the right way? Not me ever, apparently. So, yep. So then we're putting that stone in, and a perfect amount of shavings too. Sometimes it's a little bit of a guessing game, and if it's not the right amount, it can be a little bit of a headache. And then I'm just hammering that in so it's all the way down. I'm not hammering hard, by the way. Do not like go ham on yours. If you do, then you can break the stone. I'm just hammering it hard enough that it's going in. I'm not trying to do it hard enough that it'd break the stone. Here I am. If you notice, I'm not just going all the way around, and that is so that you don't push the stone to one side. So I started on one side and went to the other, and then went all the way around. So. And you want to go at an angle and just push it in. I love this little vise, by the way. You can get these on Amazon. I got that one at Harbor Freight, but you can get them at Amazon. I think they're like $25. They're really nice, though. They're super handy. And I'm just going back over and cleaning it up because it does leave little marks and stuff. So just going through and cleaning up the little marks. And then next we'll polish it. Okay, I was trying not to cut stuff out, but that was going on forever. So I cut some of that out. Now we're about to polish it. There's no reason to see the same thing for 5 minutes. So now we're polishing it. After we polish it, then I'll take it and go wash it off and with soap and water, and then it'll be done. And I might cut this a little short too, because this is a little bit of a process. You just want to make sure to go all the way around it, make sure it's really clean, and then you wash it off with soap and water and a toothbrush. And then if you need to polish more on it, you just polish more on it. You can't do too much of it. You can make sure you can't polish too much on it. You can go and get it on the stone too, so it'll polish the stone more. So just want to go all the way around the ring, make sure you get all of it. Make sure it's nice and pretty. Would you guys rather me cut parts like this out or speed them up or just leave them in? Let me know. I'd love to know. Because I just like cutting it out, but I don't mind speeding it up too. That's an option. That way you guys can see without being completely gone. But it's really just doing the same thing over and over again with the polishing part of it. Alright, and I basically got all the way around it. So I'm going to cut it and then go wash it. And this is how it turned out. I love how it looks. It's so beautiful. It's Kingman turquoise, sterling silver, and it's gorgeous. I love it.